101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a speaker, writer, executive, and storyteller, and the founder of and executive director of B Man. No other than Mr. Martin Henson.
Ooh, happy to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Martin. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Martin Henson. I am all the things that you mentioned: executive director, writer, storyteller. I do a lot of work with men, and I was interested in the opportunity to come talk about it. That's the super
Indeed.
short summary of me.
Yes, indeed. Let's empower men all over the world. Every guest coming on Book 101, they are empowering women. Today, we are empowering men. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Martin. And looking for more success. Do men really need support? Can you tell us about this, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, men really need support. This month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Last month was Mental Health Awareness Month, so we have this month that we talk about what men's needs are. And men represent the majority of people who die by suicide. At the same time, we are often undiagnosed with depression. So there's a need there to support men and the things that we're going through.
Indeed. How does the cultural script that men must be stoic providers actively sabotage their ability to seek support?
Yeah, men are oftentimes confined into roles that are strict. Uh, they call it gender role strain in some particular perspectives, where we are supposed to be providers, we're supposed to be caregivers financially, emotionally stoic. And that puts us in a position where we're not always engaging in the health seeking behaviors that we need to maintain our mental health. So men are we're stuck sometimes where we want to be supported, we want to have the opportunities to be heard, but we're often not provided those moments. So things like the groups that I run once a month and work that other men are doing are trying to meet the middle ground in that need.
Mr. Martin, with men accounting for 80% of suicide in many countries, why is it not male mental health treated as a public health emergency?
That's a great question. I wish that it was. I think the way that we talk about mental health is often ran through a paradigm that can be focused on women, oftentimes unfairly, and it doesn't adjust in ways that adapt to what happened to men. So in previous years, without me getting into it too much, women were the face of mental health and mental illness, and they were oftentimes seen as the forefront of anxiety and depression, with men oftentimes directing that care. On the other side of that, men have their own needs and are bound into masculine expectations, or we're not actually able to receive the care and support that we're looking for, oftentimes because other people expect us to be in roles that do not need or require it. So we have this thing called, for black men specifically, called John Henryism, where we're meant or seen as being strong and able to weather all battles and hardships, but we have a mental toll that comes onto us that we have to navigate in a way that oftentimes can have hidden uh, effects of depression.
Why is vulnerability seen as a weakness in men when it's the foundation of authentic connection?
I think that men are struggling to find vulnerability to be appreciated in ways that give them access to it. What I often say for myself, I'm allowed to be vulnerable if I'm talking about death, somebody passing, or my child. I have a daughter. I can talk about my daughter. I can be soft. I can be warm. I can be friendly. My energy around emotionality has to be extended to the benefit of someone else for it to be received well. And vulnerability in the ways that I'm trying to encourage men to move into is more expansive. And not just encouraging men to move into it, because I don't want to say that this is something that men are creating. It's the social construct that surrounds us and these giving us these expectations that are overbearing, and men are doing their best to try to get through it, but they're also suffering in silence.
Indeed. And Mr. Martin, how do men experience loneliness differently than women?
Oh man, you got some great questions. Men oftentimes, when experiencing hardship, we have lived in a world that expects us to show mastery. We want to show that we're conquering the world and we're doing well and we're navigating all the problems. So when men are in situations when they're alone, the emotional cost of that often goes without a voice to hear it. There's other parts that happen within that too, as it relates to socialization. Women are more likely to seek out other women to navigate emotional problems and issues and congregate in that way. And when men move outside of networks that are bound by particular walls, let's say school, let's say certain types of work, and we're by ourselves and we have to build those relationships on our own, sometimes we struggle because we haven't had a lifetime of attempting that as a practice to maintain our mental health. So loneliness can is to me one of the biggest factors in mental health because isolation, when once people are by themselves, there's so many different health impacts that occur. So we really have to be better at uplifting the intervention strategies that we have for men to seek out other men.
Very well said, Mr. Martin. Beautifully articulated. How does the expectation to be the rock for the family leave new father droning in silence?
Well, you have men taking on burdens and adjustments to the family dynamic. Those can be emotional, those can be social. That can be if you have new children coming in, you're having to figure out how to navigate a situation in a variety of ways. One of those ways is like I talked about, men mastery is a thing that we're taught that we must do. We must know how to do something well. So when you have a variety of different impacts happening in your world, and you don't have the amount of support that you may need to get through it, people really struggle. And men are told, and we're given the message that we're supposed to know it all and do it all. And you have people in your family, you might have your children looking at you, or your parents looking at you, or your cousins or aunts and uncles. You are expected to hold up the family in a way that may come to your detriment sometimes. And in certain cultures and certain positions, people are learning to adapt to allow men to have more emotionality and more vulnerability when having these big expectations like being the rock of the family come around.
Being the rock indeed. Where can men truly be emotional honest?
Men find a variety of places to do that. So in my culture, in black culture, the barber shop tends to be that spot where all ideas are come in and people work through it and they get a space to vent, and they hear about it. I was actually talking to my barber when I went back home in Little Rock, and he was telling me about how he had to cut people's hair who were going to funerals and were dealing with loss, and they were talking to him about it. And you have people in your community that become these informal support spaces, not quite therapists, but they hear and receive all of the things that people are going through. You have spaces like that, and men also like to share in activities. We like to do things so that the conversation, the vulnerable point of our discussion is not the focus. So we can be doing something. We could be playing cards. We could be playing sports. Uh, you can be watching a show, and you could be having a conversation about emotional things in a very passive way that doesn't feel threatening. So men use those moments fairly often.
Mr. Martin, why do doctors often overlook depression, anxiety symptoms in men?
Well, it depends on how they are thinking about what depression and anxiety symptoms are supposed to look like. Many times when we look at the DSM, which is a manual of disorders that is used by mental health professionals, the symptoms may look like things that are not typical for men's presentation. The book that I came in here thinking about really goes out of its way to highlight overt and covert depression. So, overt depression is when it is shown visibly. You can look at somebody and tell that they're exhibiting signs of depression. But covert depression, which many men navigate, is something that is not easy to see. So, medical professionals are learning to catch up with what male typical symptoms of depression look like.
What would healthy masculinity look like if a centered emotional fluency?
I Masculinity is such a misunderstood topic nowadays because it's something that men oftentimes can't extract themselves from, and people are often talking to us about what it is. Masculinity at its best brings these features that men often move toward, which is protecting your community, reverence for your family, providing. And when that can happen in the language of emotional fluency and emotional support, that allows men to still feel as if they are masculine and valued and express things that maybe they didn't do as often before, but are still helpful to their communities.
Indeed. Mr. Martin, what is the number one fear stopping men from asking for help?
Shame, shame, shame. That's easy. It came to me so quickly. Shame, man. Shame is
True.
is it destroys us. It destroys us because that's on the other side of the things I was discussing around us. We are supposed to know how to do things because if something goes wrong, oftentimes it's on the men to figure it out. And so having a good relationship to shame, because shame is something that happens, is a part of the emotional range. But when we're able to have a more reintegrative focus on shame, experience with it, where shame can allow us to come closer to communities rather than be more distant, then we're able to transcend the types of issues that we're talking about here. But shame is that thing.
Shame indeed, people. And very well said, Mr. Martin. Very well said. And as a speaker, writer, executive, and storyteller, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short term and long term goals. The short term is to have more conversations like this. This is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. June is only so long, so I want to be able to push this forward as much as possible, uh, to talk about it and write about it and encourage the conversations that allow men to be their full self. I like that. I want to do that short term. Long term goal is to write more. Eventually, write a book about the things that I'm discussing. Write about the things that I've been going through to continue to advance the Men Foundation. Have more sites for men to do support work, and be able to talk to other organizations who are thinking about how to work with men and be as helpful as I can be.
Yes, let's empower men all over the world. And good luck for your goals, Mr. Martin, and hoping for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a speaker, or want to be a speaker, writer, or executive or storyteller?
Yeah, the advice, I wish I had an easy way to get to it. You just have to do the thing. For me, I'm there's part of me that is a perfectionist. I want to do it right and perfect the first time and every time. But writing, speaking, storytelling, you just have to do it. You just have to get into it, allow yourself room to grow, uh, build connections. But the continual growth is something that I believe in. It's something that I do often, and I think about myself. How much, how much more, how much have I advanced between this year and the last year towards my goals, spiritually, emotionally, physically? Like it doesn't always have to be me taking one step ahead. It could be just me being in a deeper place with my mindfulness to my practice. But how am I advancing? So that's what I'm thinking about all the time when I'm doing this work. So just creating the habits to do it, and then eventually it will come.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Martin. And how can partners, families safely encourage men to open up without triggering defensiveness?
Yes, I. It's so men are such a big topic around our mental health. What I do, I'm gonna say what I do is I destigmatize asking for help. I destigmatize talking about mental health. I tell people that I used to recommend, if I knew someone who was struggling, I might recommend therapy. Like, oh, why don't you try doing this? The other part of therapy is that only, I want to say around 17% of men you utilize mental health services, somewhere between 17 and 23. I want to make sure I get the number right. So a lot of men are not. They're figuring out other ways to navigate their mental health practices. So what I do is when I'm talking to people about mental health support, I'll do two things. One of them is that I'll say I've gone to therapy. I got X, Y, and Z from therapy. Maybe it's something that you might want to try. So I offer myself as an option, as an example. And the other thing I do is that I acknowledge that there's a lot of things that can be therapeutic that aren't necessarily therapy. So with my work with B-Men Foundation, being executive director, we do support spaces for Black men every second Sunday. It's coming up this Sunday, 5 to 7, and that gives people, that's one outlet where somebody can come and hear and be present and get something that's supportive for them without it necessarily being therapy. And talking about that in ways that allow people to find what else there is in their environment that's therapeutic for them. Like, how am I tending to my needs? What are the opportunities for me to be supported? And so that's how I do it. I try to make it as simple as possible.
Simple but effective indeed. What workplace policies could dismantle stigma?
A lot of times you'll see workplaces send out emails talking about mental health, and they'll expect people to click on it, and they want you to go through the path of their digital resources that they're offering. I think talking about mental health is more than just talking about when things go wrong. When somebody feels bad, and reach out. If you are feeling suicidal, you should do those things. Reach out if you're feeling anxious, you should do those things. But we also need to create spaces in our work environments where people can talk about things they enjoy, and things that they feel good about, or they can just share the range of emotions that they experience on a daily basis. So what I do in my job, my job works in restorative justice. We have and with restorative justice, very briefly, is an alternative to punishment processes, a form of conflict resolution. And what we do is we have check-ins. So we'll pass around to everyone, rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5, how you're feeling today. And people can give any number. And then you move into whatever work that you're doing, but you have knowledge of where people are. So just introducing just emotional presence into the space is a really good start.
Mr. Martin, how does pop culture perpetuate toxic isolation?
Well, America, we're very individualistic. We're capitalist country. Everybody, is trying to get theirs and for themselves. So we don't have a communal orientation. So we're oftentimes limited by that, where people get isolated because they think that their problems are their own. So when I think of what accountability to my mental health looks like, it also means accountability to my community and being responsive and being connected so that I can give energy to the people around me and they can give me energy. Because when we're going through it, we don't know what we look like. We don't know how we might be perceived to someone else. So having practices of being in community and making that a staple of your environment, that's how we can move out of this sort of isolationist approach.
Very well said, Mr. Martin. Very well said. How do race, class, or sexuality compound barriers to support for marginalized men?
Oh yeah, we getting into it now. Well, for black men, we have to deal with the impact of racism and the opportunities that we aren't afforded through by virtue of us being both black and male. So that means that education, incarceration, health access, health opportunities, health treatment, and a variety of other topics or positions, like we're impacted by that, and we have to figure out how to maintain our mental health in regards to that. And the different intersections of how people hold identity and how visible that is determines how they're going to be treated. Now, what we know about black men, like once you are both black and male, you're going to have certain outcomes, whether you're straight, gay, trans, incarcerated, formerly incarcerated. There's certain things that are going to come with it, and then within that, you're going to have different struggles that people have. Let's say if they're formerly incarcerated and they're navigating disability, they're going to have certain difficulties. If they're black, a black trans man, they're going to have certain difficulties. Me being a black straight man, I'm going to have a particular difficulty because of how I'm viewed relative to masculinity. They're all going to come in there, which is why when I set up the Men Foundation and our support spaces, I wanted to have a space where men can come in, black men, no matter where they're coming from, they can come in and be seen, heard, and valued. It's an apolitical space. We don't try to investigate how people think and believe and all these things to make them feel like they have to be good enough to be there. Like, only thing that you need to do is be a black man, and we're going to be there to offer support because we know that there's different things that people are going through that they need somebody to support them through.
Well, Mr. Martin, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season as well, comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in fifth season too, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast. Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season. Movie 101 review in fourth season, as well as my Music 101, Science 101, and Sex 101 in first season. And please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Martin, what does society lose when half its population is discouraged from seeking support?
You lose security, safety. People want to feel safe. Safety is more than physical safety and the ability to keep harm away. Is emotional safety, is spiritual safety. You want to your population, you want your people to feel like they have care that is extended to them, and you want men who are alienated. to be able to have a path to integration, because you don't want them to move down paths where they are dangerous or violent or hostile to women, or and they interpret masculinity in ways that is dominated by that alienation, because we see some of that. So we want to integrate these men, and I'm one of the people who can help do it. We want to integrate these men into a space where they can be seen and heard and understood.
Mr. Martin Henson, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy to the world?
For sure, you can follow our work at bmnfoundation.org. You can follow my writing at Till We Free on Medium and Martin H. Speaks on Substack. And I'm grateful to be here.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Martin Hanson, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Martin, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Modicon people, see you soon.